I'm very excited to be with all of you and join your great event from Oxford here. And I want to start with a question for you, which is, what do you normally do as the first thing when you get up in the morning? So for me, certainly one of my first duties in the morning is to make coffee, because my husband is definitely not a morning person. So I'm always the one on coffee duty. And as I go into the kitchen, I pass my vision board. And on this vision board, I have loads of motivational quotes and sayings and important things that remind me of, how I want to act and live and lead through the day. And one quote that I particularly like is this. It says, "Courage always pays off." And certainly in the last year, I looked at this quote a lot, sometimes multiple times throughout the day, because this pandemic was not very easy, and there were certainly challenges ahead, because I decided to quit my safe job, my well-paying job, to start a new business. And to be honest, there were certainly moments when I thought maybe a global pandemic and the start of an economic crisis might not be the best place to start something new, but courage always pays off. So we just kept going, and I got this amazing privilege through the decision and the courage to start Wingwomen to actually work with a lot of inspiring leaders from all over the world. And what always surprises me is that even though we are all so different, we have different challenges that we need to tackle, a lot of our struggles are actually the same. So the people who come to us to learn what it takes to rise up, to lead well, to make a difference in this world, they come from many levels. Some of them are very junior. Some of them are CEOs of their organizations. Some of them come from startups and NGOs. Some of them from global tech companies. And some of them could really use this pandemic as an opportunity, as I know some of you will have, where they actually managed to grow incredibly fast, or to actually, do a lot of amazing things, thanks to the opportunities that this crisis also brought. But the truth is that there were also a lot of people who really struggled mentally, but also at work, because they and their teams were struggling and really fighting for survival of their organization. And what united all of those people, and I guess what unites all of us here, is that the struggles that we face are often surprisingly similar. And those are struggles like feeling overwhelmed and feeling like there just is never enough you can do in the day to actually, make this pile of work a little bit smaller, that you're always running after fire to put out those fires. And then there's the struggle of uncertainty, that you ask yourself, am I doing enough? Am I doing this right enough? Am I doing this fast enough? And then there's also this struggle of feeling like you have not enough space, that you have no space, that you are busy all the time, and that you don't have space to stop and to think and to reflect and to look up and to look and recharge your energy. So if you felt any of those things, I want you to know that this doesn't make you a bad leader. This is totally normal. And, this is the reality for many of us. So that is good news, right? And the second piece of good news that I want to give you today is that even though so many of us feel like we just don't have enough space, especially in, times of crises, it doesn't have to be this way. There are actually a lot of things we can do to create more space in our lives. And that's the gift I want to give to you today. Actually, that's the gift that I want to build with you today, so that you can give this gift of space to yourself. And in order for us to do that, to create a work life for us that is, more full of space and of clarity and of energy and of calm, in order for us to do that, we just need a couple of things right now. And that's the courage to let go and the courage to try a few new things. So if you're ready now, we are going to take the courage to let go and the courage to try a few new things and get started. And the first thing that we're going to do is to let go of a very common but also a very toxic lie that a lot of us are telling ourselves and our teams and our organizations about what it means to be a great leader and a committed leader. And that is the lie of the busy bee. And the lie of the busy bee says that in order for you to succeed and to be a good leader, you just have to work super, super hard, right? You have to be the busy bee. You just have to work super, super hard. And when there's a crisis, what's the solution? You just work even harder. You start earlier, you cram your day with more meetings and more actions. And God forbid you take a weekend, because weekends are only for uncommitted losers. For some reason, exhaustion and busyness and the busy bee behavior has become a measure of what it means to be a good leader for most of us and for most organizations. But the truth actually is that the busy bees aren't the best leaders. They are actually worse leaders, because there's a lot of research that shows that if we are exhausted, if we have slept too little, if we don't have space in our life, that we are making worse decisions. There's good research that shows that if we are stressed and exhausted, we are actually less empathetic. We are more irritable. We are less able to really understand the people around us and know what the people around us and our teams need to be at their best. And we actually also know that we are less able to especially make strategic decisions when we are stressed and when we had too little sleep. And we always like to say, at least the optimistic ones among us, we like to say, crisis, no problem, great opportunity to try new things. But the reality is that most of the leaders out there are far too busy putting their head down, working really, really hard, and they don't even have the time and the energy to look up and to see all of the opportunities that a new crisis brings. So what we want to let go of now is this storyline in our head that in order for us to be good leaders and in order for us to succeed, we just have to work really, really hard. And that in crisis, we just have to work really, really hard and even harder in order for us to get out of it and to get through it. And I want us to replace this story with a story of what, let's say, the super leaders are doing, right? As great leaders, what we are able to do essentially is that we can bring out the best in the people around us. And in order for us to bring out the best in the people around us, we need in particular two things, two super weapons, so to speak, that we should focus on. And those two super weapons are clarity and energy. And this is literally the question that, I also ask myself every day when I start work, that I think, okay, what is something that I can do today to generate more clarity and more energy within me, for my team, and for my organization? And that is, again, particularly important in challenging times, in times of crisis, because in those times, it is particularly hard for everyone to have the clarity of where you want to go and what's important and what actually isn't important. And in those times, we particularly need energy to keep us going, right? When everything is easy, we all have the energy and we have the optimism and, the things that we need to actually keep going. But especially in times of crisis, we need to do even more to generate energy and clarity so that everyone is able to bring out the best in them and to actually go towards wherever we want to go to make the difference that we want to make out there. But the important thing is that energy and clarity don't just magically appear between 3:45 and 3:50 when you have 5 minutes between one meeting and another meeting. Energy and clarity are things that we need to generate on a daily basis. And there are a lot of things that we can do to create the space to generate this energy and this clarity. And I picked 3 today that I want to share with you so that all of us can actually take action today, right away, tomorrow, to create more space in our lives so that we can generate the clarity and energy that we need, that our teams need, and that our organizations need. So let's get to the first action that I would love to suggest for all of you to actually take and to try out. And the first action is that you change the way that you start your day. So how do you normally start your day, your work day? Well, the majority of leaders answer to that they kind of rush through the morning, and when they get to work, what do? We either check our emails or Slack or social media, or we actually dive right into our meeting marathon. And the reality is that this is, classic busy bee behavior. You come there, you put your head down, you work really, really, really hard so that the pie that you have in front of you gets a little bit smaller throughout the day. And actually, that isn't a way of us to generate clarity and energy in the morning. So what I want to suggest is that you change the way you start your mornings and you do two things. You start putting an energy slot and a clarity slot into the start of your day. So your energy slot is the first thing that you do when you get up. And there you do something that gives you energy. If it's meditation, then you make the time to meditate. If it is exercise, then you make the time to exercise. If you are somebody who needs 3 coffees in the morning to really get going, then you stop feeling bad about that, and then you just do that, right? What gives you energy will differ from person to person, and it will also differ throughout different phases of your life. And you just need to try it out, what works best for you. You can change it. But this is essential. This is essential and so important. And the only people who have an apology now to not do it are the people with very small kids who are basically not letting you take control of your morning. But, most of us, we can actually really do that. We can prioritize recharging in the morning and not rushing into the day. And the second thing that is so important is the clarity slot. So from now on, the first hour that you spend at work, you make it your clarity slot. And in that clarity slot, you basically use the time to look up and to create a bit of order inside your head, to silence the storm that is often going on around us, especially in times of crisis. So that might mean for you that you have so many questions at the moment that you might need to answer next. So you just use your clarity slots in the mornings to order them and to see which of the questions are actually the most important ones. It might be that you have so many ideas for what else you and your teams could do. And you always say, at some point I should be thinking about this, right? At some point I should be spending some time with this. This is something that you can use your clarity slot for. And sometimes what's holding us back is actually stress or some fear. So you use your clarity slots to actually go deeper into this and to figure out what is actually going on with me here. And I know that this is super counterintuitive because we always want to get to the action and get things done. But Albert Einstein apparently said at some point that if he had an hour to solve a problem, he would spend 90% of it on actually understanding the problem and only 10% on figuring out the solution. That is the kind of courage that we need to create space in our lives to really let a lot of the answers come to us. Because once we have these clarity slots, we are suddenly able to differentiate the important from the unimportant things. And we are able to actually see a lot of the things that, or ideas or solutions or path forward that don't come to us between 3:45 and 3:50 when we have 5 minutes between a meeting, but that we actually need to make time for. It has an amazing impact, I can promise you, from all of the different people who have now started to run their life around energy and clarity slots. But when you try that, there will be a few handbrakes that will hold you back. So when I talk about handbrakes, I mean, again, stories that we tell ourselves or fears that are actually holding us back from doing things differently and taking certain actions. And a very common handbrake that will hold us back when we want to implement energy and clarity slots into our days is that we say, well, I just don't have the time at the moment, right? So you push it into the future because at the moment you are so busy and there's so many things going on. And to that, I want to say to you, we never have time for things. We make time for things. And it's so easy for us to say, well, I don't have the time for it. You are in many ways the master of your time. And a trick that you can use here is one that also comes from, the world of investing and the world of, for example, making sure that you are actually saving up money for your retirement. There's a good trick that coaches who coach that actually use, that they say it's very easy to go through the month and you feel like, or you basically end up not having enough money at the end of the month to invest into your future. So the trick here is that you pay yourself first. When your money comes into your bank at the start of the month, the first thing you do is that you take out the money that you want to invest in your future and you pay yourself. And that's what I would love you to do going forward, that you pay yourself first, that you invest into yourself first at the start of the day by creating energy and clarity slots. It will do amazing things for you to actually create the space that you need in your life. That leads me to the second action that we want to take, because we're obviously not all by ourselves, but we have teams around us. So the second action that I want to encourage you to take is to ask for help more. So how often do you ask for help? The classic busy bee behavior is that we don't really ask for help that much because we think that being a good leader means that you just work really, really hard and that you have to have all of the answers by yourself. And I want to tell you a quick story about a CEO I've worked with at the start of the pandemic who actually had the courage to ask for help. And that didn't just help her create more space in her life, but to actually create a lot of clarity and energy for her teams and for her organization. So this CEO had a really bad time when Corona started because a lot of her customers were actually in the travel and aviation industry. And that industry did not do very well. So at the start of the pandemic, she lost a lot of her customers, a lot of her deals, and a lot of the cash flow that she needed to actually be able to pay all of the people in her teams. And she experienced all of the feelings that so many of us know, the overwhelm, the uncertainty, the feeling that there's just not enough space to even breathe. And she was very brave and took the decision to basically record a message on her phone for her whole organization. And it ended in a way that I want to share with you. So the message ended like this. She said, I know that this is a very challenging situation for all of you. And honestly, it's for all of us. It's also for me and the leadership team included. Even though I would love to give you all of the answers now, I have to be honest that at the moment, we don't have all of the answers. But what I can promise you is this. We will give it everything we've got every day to get us through this. And we have hired all of you brilliant people for a reason, because together we come up with so much better ideas than the ideas that I come up with by myself or the leadership team comes up with by ourselves. So to help you understand what's going on next and what we are doing next, I wanted to tell you that we are actually going to look at these 3 big questions for our organization, ABC. And whenever you have an idea for how we can solve one of those questions, I would love to hear them, because that I know that together we will get through this. So the courage to ask for help here, which is something that takes a lot of courage, because asking for help makes a lot of us feel weak, right? We don't want to ask for help. We feel like we as the leader should have the answers. But her courage to ask for help here actually didn't just give her more space, because more people were actually starting to help her figure out the answers she needed to figure out. But she also generated energy and clarity within her organization. How? Well, firstly, the energy that she created here is a very important energy that the people in her team and her organization needed at this point, which was the energy and the feeling to be seen, which is such an important one, right? That she communicated to her teams, I see you. I see you with your challenges. I see you with your struggles. And I care for you, right? That was the other energy she communicated. I care for you. We will do our best. We don't have all of the answers at the moment, but we will do the best we can to actually get all of us through this. And actually, by asking a question, she also generated more clarity for everyone, because suddenly the crisis wasn't just a crisis anymore. It was something that fit into a framework of 3 important questions that she and her organization actually had to figure out next. So by saying we are thinking about ABC, and I would love you to actually think with us through it and give us also some of the answers, or think with us through the answers, she actually made it easier for everyone in her organization to see the crisis in a more manageable light. So for her, that created a lot of space. And it's also something I would like to encourage you to do, to have the courage to ask for help more often. And that can be help from your teams, that can be help from your board, that can be help from people outside. Just think about it. How often are you asking for help? And could you do that even more? Because it doesn't make you weak. It actually makes you stronger, because other people will be able to find the solutions with you more quickly. And this is a good habit to get into, to ask for help more. And when we do that, there are again a few handbrakes that will hold you back, will hold us back from actually asking for help more. And one of the handbrakes that actually keeps us from asking for help is that asking for help easily exposes a fear and an uncertainty that a lot of us have. And, you know, when I say a lot of us, almost every leader that I've worked with and that I've seen has this fear in some shape or another. And that fear is the fear of not being enough, right? Sometimes we call it imposter syndrome. It is when you ask yourself or you wonder, am I right enough? Am I good enough? Am I ready enough? Am I doing enough? Am I achieving enough? Am I trying enough? And if you feel that, again, it doesn't make you any worse of a leader. It is totally normal. It is very human. And in those situations, when you feel that, give yourself the courage to not feel exposed that you might not be enough when you're asking for help, but to actually see asking for help as something that allows you to not just give yourself more space, but to give the people in your organization more space and more clarity and more energy. That leads me to our third and final action that will help you create more space. And that is the courage to radically cut out things. So how often do you actually say no to things? When was the last time you said no to something? Busy bees and most organizations don't do that. We always think that actually to solve problems, we need to do more and more and more and add more and more and more things. But in order for us to have the space to look up and to see new opportunities and to lead through crisis, we actually need more space, and therefore we need to say no to more things. And the way that we, for example, do that in the Wingwomen team is that we create a no list. So we sit down once a month and we actually create a no list. So we think as a team through what some of the practices or normal things are in our team that we want to cut out. And what we have cut out throughout the pandemic, thanks to this method, is things like saying no to certain partners that we didn't want to work with anymore. We said no to meetings on most days. So now we only have a few days when we all have meetings. We said no to multitasking and actually started monotasking. We said no to a lot of events and invitations that we always used to go to and that we thought we had to be at, but it actually didn't pay off in the way that we wanted it to pay off. And doing that is very important. It is a bit like when you are gardening, you are pruning your plants, right? So those of you who are gardening, you cut down your plants, you cut them down radically so that they have the energy to actually go into the right direction, to make the beautiful flowers that you want to see on your roses or on your lavender. And for that, you need to radically cut your plants down regularly. And we want to do the same. We want to be a team of gardeners who are actually regularly cutting down things and cutting out things, bad practices, bad processes, that we are more courageous in actually saying no to things. And it is very important that we do that together with our teams, that we have the courage to say no with them, because they need to see that it's okay to say no to things. Otherwise, when we ask them for help, a lot of them just feel like they need to come up with more stuff that they have to do, instead of actually having the courage to say some things that we are doing at the moment aren't working, so let's cut them out. And when we do that, when we cut out things, again, there we will be experiencing various different handbrakes that keep us from actually cutting out things. And one of the big fears is, what if I cut out the wrong thing, right? What if I am closing a door that is then going to be closed? What if I'm missing this amazing opportunity? Or what if we are missing this amazing opportunity? And, forget about the closed doors. The doors in your house, you open them all the time, right? You go through them 100 times. And closed doors are there to be opened again. Closed doors are there to be opened again. So let go of the fear that you have to do everything all the time because otherwise the doors might close. You can open them again later if it seems like you actually should start doing it again. So dare to cut things out so that you actually have more space in your week, in your month, in your year, in your energy portfolio to actually focus on the things that really matter. And cutting out things is an essential part for making space so that you can, have the clarity and energy to actually focus on the things that matter most to help you get to where you want to be. So have the courage to cut things out. Have the courage to ask for help. Have the courage to start your day very differently, and have the courage to let go of the lie of the busy bee, of this story that we need to be just frantically doing things all the time to be good leaders. Have the courage to do less. I know it seems super counterintuitive and it seems like it's an impossible thing, especially in crisis, but it is especially in those times that we need the clarity and the energy. It works like a scale. The more crisis we have, the more energy and clarity we need to balance it out. So have the courage to do less. And when you do that, a lot of amazing space will open up that will allow you to be a super leader, somebody who actually is able to generate clarity and energy for yourself, for your team, and for your organization. Today, we only discussed 3 actions. There are many more you can take. But the key thing really is that you don't theoretically think about it, but that you actually take action, right? Change in space comes from action, but the smart action, the action that gives us more space. And I know it will seem weird at the start. Just try it out. And if you are somebody who is a bit of a perfectionist and you think I have to do all of it at the same time, and you go through the day to day and you think there are so many different tips, I'm going to implement all of them right away, just pick one thing. Don't be so hard on yourself. Pick one thing, try it and see if it gives you clarity and energy. In our team, we always say action over perfection. So have the courage to do that, to take some action instead of being perfect. Action over perfection. So try it out, have the courage to try out a few new things from today. And I'm going to promise you, courage always pays off.